You know that moment when you finally hit $5,000 in your savings account and you feel like you've made it. Like you've crossed some invisible finish line and now you're financially responsible. Yeah, that's exactly when most people screw everything up. And I'm not talking about the obvious mistakes like blowing it all on a new TV or taking a trip to Vegas. I'm talking about something way more subtle and way more expensive. A trap that keeps millions of people stuck in mediocrity while thinking they're doing everything right. My name is Mike, and I've spent years studying the psychology of money and why some people effortlessly build wealth while others stay broke despite doing all the right things. If you want to understand the real mechanics behind wealth building instead of just following generic advice that doesn't work, make sure to hit that subscribe button and smash that like if this video ends up saving you from making a massive financial mistake. Here's the thing about $5,000 that nobody tells you. It's the most dangerous amount of money you can have. Not because having savings is bad, obviously that's better than being broke, but because $5,000 creates a psychological illusion that destroys your wealth building potential. Let me explain. When you have $0 saved, your brain is in panic mode. You know you need to fix this. There's no confusion about what you need to do. Save money, build an emergency fund. Get your financial life together. The path is crystal clear even if it's difficult. When you have $20,000 or more saved, something magical happens in your brain. You cross a threshold where money starts working for you instead of the other way around. You have options. You have leverage. You can think strategically instead of just surviving. But $5,000 is the danger zone. It's just enough to make you feel safe, but not nearly enough to actually be safe. It's like being halfway up a cliff. You're not at the bottom anymore, so you feel accomplished. But you're not at the top either, so you're still in serious danger. And here's the killer, most people stop climbing right here. Think about it. What happens when you hit $5,000 in savings? Your brain starts whispering seductive lies to you. You've been so disciplined. You deserve a reward. Or you finally have an emergency fund. Now you can relax a little. Or my personal favorite, you're financially stable now. Time to upgrade your lifestyle. And this is where people make the fatal mistake. They start spending slightly more freely. Maybe they finally buy that thing they've been eyeing for months. Or they stop tracking their expenses as closely. Or they decide it's time to move to a nicer apartment because hey, they can afford it now, right? On the surface, these seem like reasonable decisions. You worked hard. You saved money. Why shouldn't you enjoy it a little? Here's why. Because $5,000 isn't actually financial security. It's a mirage. According to research, the average American faces an unexpected expense of $1,000 or more at least once a year. Could be car repairs. Could be medical bills. Could be your laptop dying right before an important deadline. So that $5,000 buffer, it can disappear shockingly fast. One bad month and suddenly you're back at $2,000. Two unexpected expenses and you're looking at zero again. But here's where it gets really insidious. Because you tasted what it felt like to have money saved, going backwards feels absolutely devastating. Your brain interprets this as failure. And what do people do when they feel like failures? They either give up completely or they go into panic mode and make even worse decisions. Some people start buying lottery tickets hoping to get back to $5,000 quickly. Others take on risky side hustles that waste their time and energy. Some just say screw it and stop trying to save at all. This is the $5,000 trap. It gives you just enough security to let your guard down, but not enough security to actually protect you. And the psychological damage of falling back below $5,000 after you've been there can actually set you back further than if you'd never saved the money in the first place. Now here's what makes this even worse. $5,000 is also the exact amount where your money starts to matter for investing, but most people have no idea what to do with it. If you invested in the stock market, an 8% annual return gives you $400 a year. That's $33 a month. Barely enough to notice. Definitely not enough to change your life. So what do people do instead? They leave it sitting in a savings account earning basically nothing. Or they get lured into risky investments because they're impatient and want faster returns. I've seen people take their hard-earned $5,000 and dump it into some sketchy crypto scheme or a friend's guaranteed business opportunity. And then, poof, it's gone. The problem is that $5,000 is too small to generate meaningful passive income, but just large enough to make people think they should be doing something sophisticated with it. So they either do nothing and watch inflation slowly erode its value, or they do something stupid and lose it entirely. But here's what you actually need to understand about $5,000. It's not a destination. It's a checkpoint. It's proof that you can delay gratification and build discipline. It's evidence that you're capable of controlling your money instead of letting it control you. But it's not the finish line. Not even close. Think of it like running a marathon. $5,000 is like hitting mile 3. Yeah, you're making progress. Yeah, you should acknowledge that. But you don't stop at mile 3 and throw yourself a finish line party. You keep going because the real benefits come from completing the race. Here's what most financial advice gets wrong about this moment. They tell you to celebrate reaching $5,000. They say you should feel proud. You should reward yourself. And while there's nothing wrong with acknowledging progress, celebrating too early is exactly what keeps people stuck. Because here's the brutal truth. The difference between having $5,000 saved and having $20,000 saved is absolutely massive. And I'm not just talking about the obvious fact that $20,000 is 4 times more money. I'm talking about what that money does for your psychology, your opportunities, and your future wealth. Remember how I said $5,000 gives you $400 a year in investment returns at 8%? Well, $20,000 gives you $1,600 a year. That's real money. That's a modest vacation. That's a monthly car payment. That's money that starts to actually impact your life. But more importantly, $20,000 represents true walking away money. That's enough to live on for several months while you find a better job. That's enough to negotiate from a position of strength. That's enough to say no to opportunities that don't serve you. That's when your financial boulder finally crests the hill and gravity starts working in your favor instead of against you. So here's what you need to do if you're sitting at $5,000 right now. First, recognize that you're in the danger zone. This is where most people plateau and never build real wealth. Don't be like most people. Second, resist every urge to inflate your lifestyle. I know you've been disciplined. I know you feel like you deserve something nice. But that new car, that bigger apartment, that expensive vacation, those are all traps designed to keep you at $5,000 forever. The most expensive purchases you'll ever make are the ones that feel like rewards for your discipline. Third, treat your next $15,000 like it's more important than your first $5,000. Because honestly, it is. That's when compound interest starts becoming visible. That's when opportunities start appearing. That's when your entire relationship with money transforms. Getting from $0 to $5,000 proves you can save. Getting from $5,000 to $20,000 proves you can build wealth. Those are two completely different skill sets. Here's something that might blow your mind. If you save $1,000 a month with an 8% return, getting from $0 to $5,000 takes about 5 months. Getting from $5,000 to $20,000 takes about 14 more months. So in less than 2 years total, you can go from $0 to $20,000. But most people spend 5 years bouncing around between $3,000 and $7,000 because they don't understand the trap. They hit $5,000, relax their discipline, spend some money, drop back down to $3,000, panic, tighten up again, climb back to $6,000, see something shiny, buy it, drop back down. It's an exhausting cycle that goes nowhere. The people who build real wealth, they blow past $5,000 like it's nothing. They keep the same intensity, the same focus, the same discipline they had when they were at 0. Because they understand that $5,000 isn't the goal. It's just mile marker 3 in a marathon. Now let's talk about what actually happens if you do this right. If you push through the $5,000 trap and keep going to $20,000, you're not just building a bigger pile of money. You're fundamentally rewiring your brain and your relationship with finances. At $20,000, you stop making decisions based on fear and start making decisions based on opportunity. You stop asking, can I afford this, and start asking, is this the best use of my money? You stop being reactive to whatever crisis pops up and start being proactive about building the life you actually want. And here's the really crazy part. The psychological shift that happens at $20,000 often leads to even faster wealth accumulation. Because now you're thinking like a wealthy person instead of a broke person pretending to have money. You start seeing investment opportunities you never noticed before. You start taking calculated risks that pay off. You start building multiple income streams because you have the capital to experiment. Meanwhile, the person who's stuck bouncing around $5,000, they're still making the same fearful decisions. Still taking jobs they hate because they can't afford to be picky. Still saying yes to things they don't want because they need the money. Still stressed about every unexpected expense. The psychological prison of almost having enough money but not quite is absolutely brutal. And here's what makes this even more tragic. Often, these two people are making the same income. They're putting in the same hours at work. They're working just as hard. The only difference is that one person understood the $5,000 trap and refused to get stuck in it, while the other person thought hitting $5,000 meant they'd made it. So if you're sitting at $5,000 right now, or even if you're at $3,000 or $7,000, here's what I want you to do. Make a decision right now that you will not stop until you hit $20,000. Not $10,000. Not $15,000. $20,000 minimum. That's your new finish line. And I want you to treat the journey from $5,000 to $20,000 with even more intensity than you treated the journey from $0 to $5,000. Because this is where your financial future is actually determined. This is where you separate yourself from the 70% of Americans who live paycheck to paycheck despite making decent money. This is where you build the foundation for generational wealth instead of just temporary comfort. Every time you're tempted to relax your discipline, remember this. That $15,000 gap between feeling safe and actually being safe is the difference between a life of financial stress and a life of financial freedom. It's the difference between reacting to whatever life throws at you and proactively designing the life you want. It's the difference between surviving and thriving. $5,000 feels like a milestone, but it's actually a trap. The real milestone is $20,000. That's when everything changes. That's when money starts working for you instead of the other way around. That's when you finally have the breathing room to think about growth instead of just survival. Don't let $5,000 be your ceiling. Let it be your floor. Because the person who's content with $5,000 in savings is the same person who will be stressed about money for the rest of their life. And the person who refuses to stop at $5,000 is the same person who will build serious wealth over time. The choice is yours. You can celebrate hitting $5,000 and let yourself plateau like most people do, or you can recognize it for what it is. A dangerous psychological trap that keeps people stuck in mediocrity. Use it as fuel to push even harder toward $20,000 and beyond. Your future self is watching the decision you make right now. And trust me, they're really hoping you make the right one. Because that decision will determine whether you spend the next decade building wealth or just treading water. Make it count.